One is a twisting tale of murder, lies, and ill-gotten gains. The other is exactly that, but, interesting. The Maltese Falcon. They Remade It. Hi, and welcome back to another episode of They Remade It. I'm your host, Stuart.
And I'm your host, Jacob.
And if you can hear it in my voice, I am somehow still in the last legs of the grip, as it were. I still have some either allergies or drainage from previous illness, so if I sound stopped up, that's why.
I was like, what does that mean?
Yeah, no, I'm just... My body is not... My sinuses don't like me right now, as always.
Yes, same. I get it.
So it's slowly going away, and as with this cold front that appears to have hit the American South appears to just not be stopping immediately. It's just doing hell on my sinuses anyway, so.
Ooh, rough. It is sweltering here.
It's been pretty cool here for the last few days. I've had to constantly switch back and forth between heat and AC on my machine, so.
Oh, man. Yeah, I've had it on cool for the past week and a half, I think, since we got all those really bad storms, right after that.
Mm. We're actually getting a storm now, so if you hear that in the background, that's what it is.
Oh, no.
That's all right. But, once again, talking about the weather, yada yada.
It's always good. Well, okay, you don't like talking about the weather so much. Why don't you talk about something else? What have you been up to?
Yes, what have I been watching / playing? As far as playing, I finally went and did the thing I, for a long time, just kind of swore off out of principle and decided to try No Man's Sky after all this time. The controversial title that it was, and still is. If I remember correctly, the early criticisms of this game were the fact that there was hardly anything in it and that it was a really repetitive grind fest and all these different things. Now, having started it and played it for maybe a few hours, I have been hit over the head with everything from resource gathering / management to personal survival base building to assisting in building settlements and colonies to owning your own freight shipping business to understanding the origin of life itself to understanding the current process of the universe and also intergalactic or interstellar trade. It's a lot. It's a lot. And I am maybe understand at all times I'm maybe understanding 10% of it, and then I'll start doing a thing that I think is story related, and it will just throw the most esoteric sentences at me relating to something about the universe or whatever, and it feels like I should know 800 other things before learning all these things. And it has a really common issue of the main character has their own voice technically, they'll describe things in text box as they experience things, but you as the player do not experience the same things. It'll say, I looked into this monitor and was filled with this vision of a great world dying and the birth and rebirth of the universe. Meanwhile, I'm still just standing there staring at a computer screen, and beneath it there's a text box describing this, and meanwhile there's just a glitchy animal in the background. I'm like, I wish I could be seeing that right now. As it is, I'm just standing here. So it's a mixed bag so far.
They say
I'm trying to find a line of logic or a line of gameplay loop that I personally enjoy, and I think this is kind of the thing I gotta stick with. Right now I'm just enjoying kind of the general establishing there's an existing settlement that's having issues that you can become an overseer of, which was extremely easy, by the way. There's a lot of moments in it where it's I saved this freighter from 3 pirates. Cool. Do you want to now own this freighter? Sure. And same with this we had a few random robots running around here kind of causing issues. Do you want to be the mayor? It's okay.
Sure, I guess.
it's throwing so much at me. And there's a whole thing with building ships, vehicles and things I haven't found anything about, and it's so hard to track everything. It's just I'm just taking it tiny bite-sized pieces at a time, and that's still difficult.
I mean, that certainly is a lot that it sounds like they've added. How long did you, Nick, and I play like 3 hours or something, and we barely. It felt like we did nothing.
I mean, I gotta be real. Having described all this, I still feel like I've done nothing. I don't know what the hell's going on. Like, I've just been I've been thrown into these situations more than doing anything. But I remember that like the first few hours, yeah, it is jack shit. I was dumped on a planet with lethally hot oxygen and like had to like run from cave to cave to figure out anything. And eventually left and finally found a really good world, except it was covered with horrible robots, and every now and then it rained acid. Like literally just rained acid for a while. I'm like, all right, this is still only the 4th worst planet at most.
I mean, it sounds like they are making improvements. It just sounds like they still don't have. It sounds like the game still doesn't have a general purpose. And I know even since the beginning, the purpose is like make it to the center of the universe. But like, is that like a story?
Even that
is that like,
even that I'm not sure, because it's not established as the main line. It's just kind of like saying this esoteric thing of I don't know whether I'm like a god or something, or everyone is a god or something. I don't know what's going on. And like, even to say that the game has improved feels wrong. It just feels like they've got more shit in it. The game itself is still very broken. I like consistently. I played on Xbox. Every like 2 hours, I full crash. Like it just crashes and I go back to it. Like it saves pretty often, so it's not that big of a problem. But it crashes all the time, and like I'll just be pressing buttons, and you have to do like that press and hold a button to interact with an object. And sometimes as the meter's going up, it just stops, and I have to hold it for longer, and then it just keeps going, and then I'm like, what? There's just like it's so fucking janky. And again, like I said, to say it has been improved feels wrong. It just feels like there's more shit to do, which I guess covers it up a little.
I was gonna say I haven't heard a lot about like the jankiness and the brokenness aside from like glitching animals or plants or whatever, because everything's generated on the fly more or less. But one of the big complaints was just there's nothing to do, and it sounds like they have quote unquote improved that by providing you everything to do.
Yeah. But there's still like you still have to constantly manage resources, and like every single like crafting recipe gets like exponentially more convoluted, it feels like. And a lot of resources you have to go to other planets. And if you want to go back to the original planet where you needed the resource for the thing you're going to craft, you have to have some level of teleportation tech or a lot of extra fuel, and you have to make sure you marked it earlier because there's no proper map system, and because everything's constantly regenerated, it might just get glitched out and leave entirely. It's like it's like I wanted to build one building on this one planet, and I have to go 3 star systems over to find copper. Which that's an exaggeration, but it feels that way sometimes.
Well, that sounds right.
So well, I don't know if I'm enjoying it yet. I am several hours in. I do not know yet. The story I am probably going to ignore almost entirely because it seems like a convoluted, overly preachy mess, and I don't know. It feels like it's doing a lot of very hand wavy, like what is the nature of reality bullshit that's like middle school level English. I'm like, all right, let's just move on. I just want to play in the fun space game. You don't have to talk to me about like 8th grade philosophy. So it's got its charms. I don't think people need to keep. I think they can move on to another project now. I think they've done enough. I think we can just leave it as is because this thing's still a broken mess.
Well, I hope everyone enjoyed the first of what is soon to be an epic saga. Tune in next time for No Man's Sky update.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I might keep this going. But yeah, that's one thing I've been doing the last few weeks. Otherwise, as far as games go, I haven't really found a whole lot to sink my teeth into. It's just I just haven't had a whole lot of extra time for it anyway. That's really taken up the bulk of my time, just No Man's Sky and just figuring it out. As far as movies and stuff go, though, continue to be watching Futurama, which you lied to me. It's not 7 seasons. On Hulu, it's 10.
Well, Hulu is wrong is the problem. Well, firstly, Hulu new episodes of Futurama are coming very soon, so it's going to be more than that. But I'm pretty sure that the 4 direct-to-video movies, they broke each one of those up into its own season. I'm like, well, that's not a season. That's a movie that you turn into multiple episodes.
I mean, on Hulu, the big movie things, they split up into their separate episodes. Like, it's to be continues at the end of each one.
Right. Which they did, and to be fair, the DVDs were produced in such a way that you could air them on TV as individual episodes. I just think it's disingenuous to call that a season. I don't know. That's my own personal thought, though. But yeah, there were 4 seasons on Fox, and there were 2 on Comedy Central.
And where's the 7th?
Oh, that's
only
a
6.
good question. Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, I think their numbers might just be off in general.
I mean, in general, I do know for a fact. that Comedy Central only had 2, and Fox ended pretty early, so 6 or 7, somewhere around there. Anyways,
Anywho, yeah, we continue to be watching those. I've been liking the later episodes. I think I honestly enjoyed them more than the older stuff, like the Fox era.
oh wow,
Yeah, no, for whatever reason I just think they're funnier. But it's like if Rick and Morty weren't full of itself. Um, but beyond that, as far as movies go, it's actually been I've actually been slowly introducing Hannah to Wes Anderson films, which has been fun. If you've seen any of his stuff.
I have. We've talked in the past before about
Yes, that's true,
your
yes.
love for him. You've definitely seen
Yes.
more of his than I have, but I've seen a few.
I've only honestly prior to this I've only seen I think 3 of his movies, maybe 4. Yeah, the three I know I had seen was Fantastic Mr. Fox, Moonrise Kingdom, and Grand Budapest Hotel. And we've just recently I rewatched but showed her for the first time Grand Budapest. And then we both watched for the first time The Life Aquatic, which was one of his earlier ones.
Steve Zizzo? What?
Yep, Zizou, Zizou, that was it.
Ooh.
But yeah, that one was pretty good. It's cool seeing his style a bit earlier on and seeing it not quite as refined. It seems like he was like having fun with a few more elements of it. I hope he hasn't gotten too stuck to his own style now, because then the trailer for the new Asteroid City, his next film, came out not too long ago, and it looks pretty good. It definitely seems very much his thing, though. But honestly, I think I've kind of hit the best one in my opinion is Grand Budapest. I think that kind of hit his shit as good as it ever will. And I still stand by that after seeing some of his earlier stuff. I still haven't seen French Dispatch, which is the thing that came after Grand Budapest. But I just need to keep going through that catalog. But then, other than that, the only other major thing I've seen is actually I got together with my own D&D group, and we went to go see the D&D movie, which was actually a lot of fun. I thought it was pretty good.
I've been hearing that a lot of people liked it. It kind of, unfortunately, I think it was #1 at the box office for the first 5 day, but John Wick Chapter 4 and the Mario Brothers movie just immediately destroyed it. But I heard a lot of people liked it. So
yeah, I think it's a good solid film. I've seen people kind of shit on it a little bit, saying like, "Oh, it's just like it's Marvelized, everything's joking and everything." Meanwhile, reviewers who have actually played D&D are like, "Yeah, no, this is what D&D feels like." Like, and again, having also played D&D, yeah, that's what it felt like. It was really good. It's obviously like, it's not high art or anything. It's just, it's having fun with the concept. I like that a lot of it's kind of also trying to take nods at maybe like 70s and 80s fantasy films and everything. Like they have a lot of, obviously in D&D, there's a lot of like non-human races and they're present in the movie as well, but they're actually portrayed with like, those old school kind of suits and like kind of janky kind of mouth movie headpieces and everything. Like not quite Jim Henson level, but kind of in that vein. Like just clearly these fake plastic things with like weird moving mouths and everything for like lizard people and like bird folk and that sort of thing. But honestly, I think it fits the charm really well. It's definitely not trying to be too serious about it. It's trying to actually enjoy its time on screen. And it shows. It's not trying to set the world on fire. It just did a damn good job. Which, it's so amazing to me recently how many movies have been my favorite for that fact alone. That it's just trying to make a decent movie and not taking itself too seriously. It's like, all right, cool. Like between that and the menu, just being like, this is what we're doing. Here's how we do it well. That's it.
You know what? Yeah, that's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that people are liking it. I obviously I have yet to see it. I got either the last time I went to the theater or the time before that. I got a trailer for it, and the trailer was, in my opinion, very bad. So I was
the trailers
like, this doesn't look great.
The trailers aren't great. Honestly, though, all the main cast do a friggin' stellar job acting. Like, obviously, again, none of it's meant to be too serious, but they all do really good jobs, and there's a lot of actually genuinely heartfelt moments. Hugh Grant's fantastic as like kind of the semi-main villain. There's a wider thing going on, but honestly, it seems like his deal is kind of the more immediate issue, which is he's just this, just constantly smiling roguish douchebag, and it's just pretty hilarious all throughout. Yeah, I think the whole cast of folks did a really good job and actually made some pretty good references to the source material. I don't know a lot of it myself, but I'm getting there.
Oh, very, very nice. And hey, potential future episode. So,
oh shit, you're right.
The Jeremy Irons one from like 2001 or something.
Oh god, yeah, I forgot that was a thing. That's gonna be fun.
Yeah, yeah. Give me an excuse to actually see this new movie. But
I mean, go for it.
yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of the extent of my thing. Sorry I took so much time with No Man's Sky. You can cut that down if you need to.
No, that's fine. You took as long to explain as the game has content. It's fine. Everything maps.
I gave more explanation than that tutorial ever gave me.
I also believe that. Unfortunate that they have not progressed past that point. Oh. But I've been playing some stuff. I've been watching some stuff. The main thing on the play front is I was actually playing it before we recorded the last episode, but I hadn't gotten very far because I had to stop. But I finally finished Pizza Tower just yesterday.
Yeah, I've seen that around.
Which was a lot of fun. It's the first game that I was fully aware of the development cycle for. Like I followed the guy, one of the guys that was working on it on Twitter, I guess, and so I would see updates for it, and I was like, oh, this looks like a lot of fun. I can't wait to play it when it comes out. That sort of momentum-based platformy style, very Wario-esque.
Yeah, kind of got that like rat rod art style and everything.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it was. That game's a lot of fun. It's not a difficult game, especially to beat, but it is a very difficult game to master. I'm going to be spending a lot of time in the future, on and off, I think, getting S and P ranks. It's like you have to go through the entire stage, don't lose your combo, hit all the secrets, collect all the toppings. It's like, okay. Let me process.
And that actually did remind me, there actually was one other game I've been playing that is in a very similar vein, Hi-Fi Rush, if you've heard anything about that one.
Of course.
It is a fantastic gem of a game. I think it's perfect in almost every way. I am so goddamn bad at it. I'm so terrible at it. I'll see people getting into fights getting like 70,000 points, and I'm like, how did you break 20? It's just, I'm not good at spectacle fighters, but I love this game so much, so it's kind of a rough mix.
I try to get to the point where I'm the best at the game where I can possibly be, and I get what I want out of it, and I'm like, you know what, I mastered it, even though technically I have not. Like, another thing, I'm not going to go too in-depth to it, because it's a very old game that I've played multiple times before, but I finally actually completed Braid, because at least on Steam, one of the achievements for completion is to go through the entire game and fully complete it, collect all the puzzle pieces and everything in under 45 minutes. And I watched a guy speedrun it in like 26 minutes. And after watching this full speedrun, I then proceeded to play through the entire game 3 times in a row, and my best time was like 41 minutes, I think. And I'm like, you know what? I mastered the game. And then I put it away. It doesn't matter that guy has me beat by like 17, 18 minutes. It's fine.
Speedrunners are a different breed entirely, and I fear them.
Yeah, I could never speedrun anything, even the games that I hold the most dear. There's not enough time.
The people that put true fear in my heart are people that can speedrun GeoGuessr.
Well, they're just very, they're worldly. That's it. I mean, they've seen that sign before.
It's so freaky.
Oh. But yeah, that's pretty much it on the video games front. I've played a bunch of other stuff, but nothing really worth noting. As far as watching, I kind of had a little, first off, I had a little early 2000s animation fest, just because I did the Disney thing since Disney Plus launched a couple years ago and went through like their entire catalog. I was very worried
there for a second where you said early 2000s. Like, okay, where is this going? There is a lot of bad shit in the beginning of that, but then you said animation. I was like, oh, thank God.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, there's still a lot of bad shit, and I'll get into that. I did that, and then I did the Shrek thing unintentionally last year, though there's not near as much Shrek to go to. It was still a pain. And
I never want to hear out of context doing the Shrek thing.
I did the Despicable Me thing, too, and I don't know why. It's just like, well, I haven't seen like any of these all the way through. It's probably time that I just did it. So
you didn't have to do that.
No, I didn't have to. It was just a thing that kind of happened. But anyways, I went through a bunch of early 2000 stuff. Things I've seen before, things I haven't seen since I was a kid. And it ranged from fantastic to middling to horrendous. Just awful. Like, for example, Robots I saw for the first time since I was a kid, and I was like, you know what? Yeah. I thought this would be worse than this is. It's fine. Robots is a fine movie. It is not terrible. Even I thought it would be awful, and it's not. And then I watched the third of the Aardman DreamWorks joint pictures, Flushed Away, their first CG one, and I was like, oh, this is just as awful as I thought it would be.
Of course.
So Yeah, and I won't go into one of these movies that I watched. Maybe that's too big a hint, but because I want to do an episode on it in the future, because we can. And that kind of goes into other movie talk, because I also watched another movie that I won't be discussing because I want to talk about it in the future. But
all right, then.
That's two things I watched that I'm like, oh, we're just going to do episodes on these. I'm going to force it. And that moves into the theater stuff. I saw Scream 6. I think we recorded the last episode the night before I was going to see it, and I even mentioned on the show I was going to see it.
Oh, yeah.
So I went to the theaters and I saw that, and you know what? It's pretty good. It's funny because all of the Scream movies follow the same formula, which isn't saying a lot for horror, but the fact that it's a meta-narrative on horror movies as a whole, it means it's pretty inventive until you start getting up to movie 5, movie 6, and it's like, how inventive can you be when you're just becoming a part of the meta you're making fun of, you know?
Yeah.
But I do think that they actually take it in interesting places. They have mix-ups, and they deliberately defy horror movie franchise rules, quote-unquote, that are established in the movie, which is kind of a first for the Scream series that I can think of, because the Scream series is heavily reliant on you need to know your horror movies or else things aren't going to play out for you. And this is the first one where it's set that I can think of. It's been a while since I've seen 4 and the others. But this is the first one that I can think of where it's like, here are the established rules. That does not always mean anything. And that was a lot of fun.
Honestly surprised it took them this long to start doing that.
True, though I guess it was forever and a day between 3 and 4, and then 5 was just like last year, I think, was Scream 5, wasn't it? Like over the summer or something? Because I remember when the Scream 6 trailer came out, we talked about it on the show, and I was like, Scream 5 was like a great ending, and it put to rest like the legacy thing. I can't believe they're making another one. But yeah, it turned out pretty good. Unfortunately, some legacy characters do come back. Not that it's a horrible thing, and they're fine actors, but I'm like, can we please just get away from like the nostalgia baiting? I don't really think it's necessary at this point. It's fine to have characters from Scream 5 that were iterated on in Scream 5 show up. I don't mind that. It's just like oh, look, Courtney Cox is doing more things. I'm like, okay, sure. Fine, I guess.
The actress is still getting work, at least.
That's true. But yeah, overall, I think it's good. I think it's a good movie.
Rad.
And I think most people would agree.
I don't want to do an episode on that one. That's going to be too much work.
I'm not going to have us do an episode where we watch 6 movies. Don't worry.
I think also we couldn't, though, because they're not remakes, and they're not overdue sequels. They're just a lot of sequels.
That's true, because 4 was within the 15-year, which is our cutoff. It was within that time frame, so...
We just went by a lot of fucking sequels. We'd have to deal with Fast and Furious.
True. Ugh, true. I would not. I would actually refuse. You could do that on your own.
If I ever asked to do that, I need you to come find me and shoot me, because I've been taken by a body snatcher.
Will do. And finally, something else I saw in the theater, and for the first time ever, I've talked about it in the past, how I've gotten to a theater and I was so close to being just alone in a theater, and then someone comes in and some guy's sitting in the back coughing. For the first time it happened, completely alone in the theater for the entire runtime. Why is that?
Hallelujah.
Because I saw Adam Driver's Awfully Named 65.
Oh no, my man. Why?
Well, it was a Sunday morning, and I didn't have much going on, and I was like, you know what? I'm free today. I'm just going to go to the theater and, see what comes. And that was playing at a relatively decent time. I had seen some on it, and it didn't really look like my thing. But I do like Adam Driver, even in those awful Star Wars movies. Well, I say awful as if they're all awful, but, the Star Wars movies. Like, I like Adam Driver. So I was like, I'll watch it, sure. And, yeah. I mean, my first real problem is the title is like a horrible title.
Yeah, it's about one of the worst titles I've ever seen.
Yeah, literally, you have no idea what that means at all.
Unless you see
there's
the trailer.
No connotation to it unless you see the trailer. And then I think they were worried about that because literally the movie starts with the title flashing on screen, and then below it says a million years ago. And I'm like, you... Someone got skittish.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird because it does some cool things in the movie. It's bogged down by a lot of waiting for dino action, and then dino action's not coming, and you're like, when are we going to get to the dinosaur factory, And these two main characters, Adam Driver and the girl, I forget her name, they're the only leads. They don't speak the same language, because he's like carrying these people on like a passenger ship or whatever, so she's from a different planet, so they can't speak the same language, and they don't understand each other. but they don't do anything with it. So it's just frustrating because there's verbal misunderstandings that aren't leading to like mischief or chaos really. It's just him having to repeat himself and like do little sign motions to tell her to go upstream and get water. Like, I at least do something with that if you're going to pull it in, or else why you can have your conflict come through in some other way. You both speak English, but you're lying to her about something. Like,
I'm getting a lot of
get it.
I'm getting a lot of M. Night Shyamalan's After Earth vibes from this, ironically, considering this is before Earth.
I don't even want to think about After Earth ever again.
Yeah, sorry, I have cursed this recording session already.
That's okay. But like I said, there are cool things. There is some cool dinosaur stuff. There's some cool like scenes that would fit into a horror, like a well-made horror movie, I think, just shots that are shot well. And there's one that I really like where it's not really spoiling anything, even though it's at the halfway point of the movie, but it's also 65, so who cares? But Adam Driver has this little machine that he pulls out because it's too dark in this cave, and it maps the perimeter and displays on a little holographic screen like his surroundings. And that's how he learns that there's like this, it's not like a velociraptor, but there's some kind of dinosaur right behind him that he can't see. And it attacks him, and the machine drops, and you can't really see them fighting because it's so dark, but occasionally there will be a flash of light while they're fighting, and the camera's also rotating around this machine, so you see them fighting through the holograms. And just the way it's staged, I'm like, I really like this scene. This is a good scene. Too bad it took us 45 awful minutes to get to this good scene.
Okay, here's a question I have to ask, and you can spoil as little or as much as you want with it. Does the fact of them being what I assume to be ancient humans, pre-human on Earth civilization, does that have any bearing on the plot as a whole, and has any explanation as to why there are ancient humans on this planet in an alien spaceship?
Yes and no. I'll spoil as much as I want without just going too far into it for time reasons, but like they are aliens. He's from a different planet. And he was transporting all these people, including the little girl who is from a different planet. They just all happen to look humanoid. And they get hit by an asteroid belt and crash on Dinosaur Earth. And they have to... Well, one, they're just trying to make it off of Earth because who wants to be in this hellscape with all these dinosaurs running around? But then also, it's like, oh, my machine tells me that the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs is about to strike the Earth. So we got to get off the Earth. And they don't stay there, so it's not like they populate the planet, which would be gross because she's like a little girl, but, it's... So they're not even, like, early humans. They just are humanoid figures from another planet who just happen to wind up on Dino Earth and then leave before they die.
There's not even, like, a thing of, like, they left behind some of the passengers or their DNA or anything? Like, it's just like they just crash and then leave?
So technically they did leave behind a bunch of passengers, but they all died in the ship, so I guess technically there's, like, DNA there. But it's not like there was a stinger where one of them's alive, or like nothing like that.
And also, like, I guess just dead humans wouldn't cause like new humans to grow from that anyway. That's not how
like a fungus,
that works. So yeah, there's just like no point.
Nope.
And you're telling me that they crash landed on the same day that the fucking like I forget the name of the asteroid, but the Dino Killer asteroid was about to hit.
Yeah, like 2 days before I think the asteroid hits.
What the fuck?
But I think they kind of try to tie that into the plot because it's like, oh, the big asteroid that killed all the dinosaurs was a part of this asteroid belt shower, and that's what hit their ship. So they try. I'm not saying it works, but they try to pull it together.
What the fuck, man?
This is a Sunday morning TBS dad movie, okay? This is like your father watching it on the couch at 8 a.m. on a Sunday. That's what this movie is.
This is like if at the end of Planet of the Apes they just went, we're arresting you now, and then that's it. It just ended right there.
That sounds like a bad ending.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Oh. But yeah,
oh, God.
Not to linger on 65, not to spend 65 minutes on 65, but yeah, that is everything I've been playing and watching.
Well, I guess we can go from the realm of the incredibly fantastical and whimsical to the incredibly dry. Dry. It's the Maltese goddamn Falcon. Right. For this one, there are two movies of this, and the original is actually the lesser known one. The remake is the more famous one. There is the original from 1931 and the remake from 1941. And before I get into this, I'd just like to implore to you, Jake, that the next time I try to suggest a noir film, please shut my mouth. Just because this plot line's going to be hard to recount. However, I will say that the Wikipedia author for the plotline in the 1931 film is my hero because they did my favorite thing where they gave the name of the actor directly after the name of the character they portray, and that makes my job so much easier. Thank you, you anonymous beautiful bastard. So starting off with the 1931 film, directed by Roy Del Ruth, screenplay by Brown Holmes, Maud Fulton, and Lucian Hubbard, uncredited, and is based on the 1930 novel of the same name by Daniel Hammett, just 1 year before, which is interesting. Kicking into the plot, in San Francisco, private investigator Sam Spade, played by Ricardo Cortez, and his partner Miles Archer, played by Walter Long, are hired by one Ruth Wonderly, BB Daniels, to follow one Floyd Thursby, who was never actually shown, a man that allegedly ran off with her younger sister. Later that night, police detective Tom Polhouse, played by Farrell McDonald, informs Spade that Archer has been killed while tailing Thursby. Thursby, however, is also killed later, and the police start to suspect Spade as a recompense for killing his partner. The next day, Spade calls on Wonderly in an attempt to find out her real reasons for hiring them. She gives Spade little information, but manages to keep him on the case. Later, one Dr. Joel Cairo, played by Otto Madison, visits Spade's office and offers him $5,000 if he can retrieve one enamel figure of a black bird. Cairo is trying to recover it for the quote-unquote rightful owner. Not knowing anything about the statuette, Spade plays along and agrees to try to recover it. That night, Spade tells Wonderly about his talk with Cairo, and she becomes nervous. Then Polhouse and his superior, Lieutenant Dunny, played by Robert Elliott, arrive at the apartment. They question Spade, but are interrupted by the screams of Wonderly, who's holding Cairo at gunpoint after he had broken in. The policemen leave with Cairo in tow. The next morning, as Wonderly sleeps in his bed, Spade lifts her latchkey and thoroughly searches her apartment, finding nothing. Because they're sort of in a relationship now, it's a bit... Both these movies really range from lightly to moderately misogynistic. It's going to be pretty consistent throughout. Returning to his own apartment, Spade receives a note from Casper Gutman, played by Dudley Diggs, inviting him to come and talk about the Blackbird statue. Over drinks and cigars, Spade learns the history and the value of the statuette, which is encrusted with precious jewels. Gutman is the mastermind behind an attempt to steal it. Believing Spade actually has it, Gutman reveals everything he knows. Just then, Cairo arrives and tells Gutman privately that Spade does not have the Falcon, as Wonderly gave it to the captain of a ship called the La Paloma, which arrives from Hong Kong later that night. Gutman slips knockout drops into his drink before leaving. That's into Spade's drinks, sorry. Later that night, Spade arrives back at his office and finds his secretary, Effie Perrine, played by Una Merkel, asleep behind his desk. Suddenly, a man staggers in, drops a suitcase he's carrying, and dies. This is Captain Jacobi, played by Agostino Borgato. He is the captain of the La Paloma, and he has been shot several times. So the suitcase has the black bird inside of it. Spade checks the bag at the baggage check and sends himself the ticket in the mail to, reclaim it later, because that's how it worked back then. Called in to see the district attorney, played by Morgan Wallace, because of Archer's murder, Spade is given 24 hours to wrap up the case and identify the real killers. Wonderly lures Spade into his apartment, where Cairo and Gutman are waiting there with guns. Gutman offers an envelope with $10,000 in cash in exchange for the Falcon. Spade insists that there has to be some kind of fall guy that will go to jail for the murders and suggests Gutman's gunman, one Wilmer Cook, played by Dwight Fry. Gutman and Cairo agree to Spade's proposal. Spade calls Effie and asks her to bring the suitcase to them in the morning, while Gutman explains how Wilmer killed both Thursby and Jacobi. Bag shows up, and Wilmer escapes while the conspirators are frantically opening it and examining the bird. They soon, however, determine that it's a fake. They must have been duped by the previous owner in Constantinople / Istanbul in the remake, which is fun. And Gutman and Cairo decide to make another attempt on stealing it. As they leave, Gutman takes back the $10,000 he gave to Spade while pointing a gun at him. Spade immediately calls Detective Polhouse and tells them to pick up Gutman, Cairo, and Wilmer. Confronting Wonderly, Spade accuses her of killing Archer in order to frame Thursby and get him out of the way so she could have all the money of the Falcon to herself. She admits to it, and Spade tells her that he's going to turn her in despite their love for each other, because apparently they loved each other. When Dundee and Polhouse show up, they reveal that Wilmer actually killed Gutman and Cairo before being apprehended. Spade gives them Wilmer's guns, tells them that Wonderly killed Archer, and they take her away. Spade goes on to visit Wonderly in prison to tell her that he has been made chief investigator for the district attorney's office. Spade instructs the prison matron to treat Wonderly well and give her anything she wants. When the matron asks who will pay for the treatment, Spade tells her to bill the DA. Oh, that is a... I'm brushing over I imagine I'm brushing over certain parts of the plot, and certain things might not be super clear, but trust me, having watched it also, that's kind of how it felt at the time too. But thankfully, the 1941 film is almost beat for beat exactly the same, so I'll just be going down the change in actors and such. It is directed and has the screenplay written by John Huston, and is based on the same Maltese Falcon novel from 1930. Going to the cast list, we have Humphrey Bogart as Sam Spade, Mary Astor as Ruth Wonderly / Bridget O'Shaughnessy, which is her character's actual name apparently. Gladys George as Iva Archer. Peter Lorre as Joe Cairo, or Peter Lorre, sorry, I'm not sure. Barton McLean as Lieutenant Dundee, Lee Patrick as Effie Perrine, Sydney Greenstreet as Casper Gutman, Ward Bond as Detective Pullhouse, Jerome Cowan as Miles Archer, Elisha Cook Jr. as Wilmer Cook, James Burke as one of the hotel people, and Walter Huston as Captain Jacoby, but he went uncredited. The only major difference is there isn't the scene at the end where he visits her in prison. She just gets taken away, and that's the end of it. And there's actually a bit more history on the Maltese Falcon, supposedly having been a gift from the Knight Templars of Malta to the King of Spain, but it got stolen by pirates or whatever. But it's honestly kind of neither here nor there. Fucking noirs, man. I forget how convoluted they are.
Yes, but you did a great job with the plot. No, so yeah.
Well, thank the uncredited Wikipedia author. They're a saint.
Fantastic recounting, sir. Yes, I enjoy listening to a man who likes to talk. Yes.
Oh my god, yeah. I gotta say, the fucking, I completely forgot his name now. Gutman, which is a hilarious name for the character. He's a joy in the 1941 one, but we'll get to that.
Yes, Sydney Greenstreet is a favorite of mine. But yes, let us first delve into a short full circle. All right, so first up, the only one we have for the 1931 Maltese Falcon, Dwight Fry, who played Wilmer Cook. He was also Fritz in 31's Frankenstein, so 231 features. And I mean...
Yeah, you could really roll films out pretty quick back then, huh?
Oh, definitely. And I mean, Dwight Fry was he was all over those Universal monster movies too. Like he was Renfield in the 1931 Dracula.
Oh.
So he really he got around.
Damn.
And now moving on to the 41 Maltese Falcon, we have Jerome Cohen, who was Miles Archer. He also played Thomas Mara in 1947's Miracle on 34th Street.
Oh. Okay.
Walter Houston, as you said, was uncredited as the murdered Captain Jacoby in 41's Maltese Falcon. He also played Mr. Scratch in 1941's All That Money Can Buy, also known as the Devil.
Oh, yeah. Huh.
And finally, we have Peter Lorre, who was Joel Cairo in the Maltese Falcon, and he was Hans Beckert in 1931's M. So, while the original Maltese Falcon is coming out over here, he's doing M for Fritz Lang in Germany.
That explains the accent.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, Peter Lorre was another one of those big horror guys. He was in all those Hammer films with Vincent Price, and
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Looney Tunes like to do caricatures of him with those weird bug eyes.
Yeah, okay. I knew I recognized him from something.
Yeah, but that is it for Full Circle.
Mercifully short. My God.
Yes.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah, I'm gonna need a sip of water after that one. It's not as hard as Seven Samurai was, for that's for damn sure, but it's still convoluted. So.
Oh, definitely. So going into this one, I think I made a mistake. I did the 31 version a bit of an injustice because I did watch the 41 version first. And I think I would already be coming out with this opinion, but I think it's even more so having watched what I consider to be the superior version prior to the original film. So, so that definitely potentially tainted the analysis a little bit, but I still think it's valid. In that end, just the pure talent and cast that is available for this 41 version is just astounding. Like if like Humphrey Bogart aside, who is his own big name, the character actors themselves, like 31 had some character actors in it,
Mhm.
but 41 has straight up actors playing characters in it. Like these are believable in these roles, and they really flesh out what originally felt like kind of a stilted sort of almost like stage play telling of this book to
Mhm.
what actually feels like a realistic world.
Yeah, it is really like the Maltese Falcon is often cited as kind of like one of the triumphs of the noir genre, and it shows big time. Like even knowing all the tropes about noir, and I've got my own issues with classic noir in general. Just between like the just kind of at times like the equal parts complex and interesting nature of the conspiracies that go on board, and also the kind of chauvinistic and boiled down attitudes at times. It's always been a weird mix for me, but seeing it done in its like truest original form is hard not to respect. It's just it's also not so convoluted as a lot of modern noirs have become, because you have to keep making it more complex to make them interesting. Which is kind of like, it's like with the original Olympics, you could get a gold in gymnastics just for doing one clean jump, and now you have to be like doing physics while you're in the air. And it's just it's hard not to kind of love it for that. And I think you made a very good point of calling the original more of a stage play telling of it, because, oh boy, it's a lot of scenery getting chewed on that one.
Yeah, and not to mention just the actual fleshing. I think some of it has to do with the actors, and some of it just has to do with the directing style. It has to be, because like they flow so quickly from one bit to another. I imagine if I watched the 31 version first, I would be like, oh, this is kind of a dull bit from the book that they felt they had to include because it's part of the plot. But the 41 version improves on it, by actually being like, this is a character moment that we can turn into movie gold. For example, near the
Yeah,
ending of the movie, where they find out that the Maltese Falcon is pure lead, it is not the real thing. It was a recreation. In the 31 version, Cairo starts. He goes off very briefly on Gutman. He's like, "Oh, you idiot! He reproduced it because you let him know. He caught on to us." And almost immediately, Gutman's like, "Well, no time to sit around. We have to go. Do you wish to come with me?" And Cairo's like, "Yes, of course." And then they leave. Okay,
yeah,
and then go into the 41 version. Peter Lorre, doing his Peter Lorre self, starts to have like a mental breakdown at the fact that
yeah.
this thing isn't real. All the trouble that they've gone through. He's like,
Like 3 men have died over this thing.
it's fantastic. No, it was you who bungled it. And he starts screaming at him, and Sydney Greenstreet's just sitting there, and then he bounces back and does the same thing. He's like, "Well, I'm not just going to sit here. It's time to go. We must go." And when he asks Cairo if he wants to go with him, Peter Lorre's taken aback a bit. He's like, "You would have me? Like, even after I just called you a bloated fathead, you would still have me on your journey?" Like, it's like a character moment between these two that are like, their destinies are intertwined at this point. They have to find this thing.
Yeah, like they actually seem like genuine, because the both of them are their own unique form of scumbag, and to see them both be terrible for each other in this way is really interesting. Meanwhile, in the 31 version, is I half expected to start hearing "friends for life through thick and thin" and another tailspin as they ran out the door.
Yeah,
It's like this is like a cartoon now. What the fuck?
we're not necessarily
Also,
dependent on each other. We're literally just friends. So,
yeah,
let's go.
and it's just like there's also just like a really small moment in that, which I briefly mentioned in the synopsis, that for some reason I just find interesting, is that in the original they say they have to go back to Constantinople, but then in the remake they say they have to go back to Istanbul, which is like, that kind of tells me either one, public opinion about the name finally kind of shifted around that period, because it had been Istanbul for a very long time at that point. It didn't just change in that 10-year period. Or B, in the second one, in the remake, they either did better research or the character was done much better, because he's clearly an intelligent man who's done all this history in an era without Google. He had to do this the old-fashioned way, of knowing the history of Malta and its relationship with Spain, and the fact of this specific item, of having probably to track down shipping records and everything. Yeah, of course he's going to call it Istanbul. That is the proper name for it right now, and it has been for some time. And I found that to be a very interesting point of the general effort and little details they even went to flesh out these characters. And that really didn't strike me until actually I kind of went back through the 31 version because it kind of blew past me at a certain point after watching the 41 version, and after renoting that, it's like, yeah, these characters are really deep. Like, I'm honestly very surprised.
Yeah, it's blissfully the 31 one. I mean, both of these movies are short, due to the circumstances of the time that they came out, more or less. If it wasn't an epic, it was like an hour and a half. But like, even still, the 31 one's like an hour and 9 or something. It's blissfully brief, I'll say.
Yes.
So,
but I gotta just kind of address the difference here, just in general. Like I said at the beginning of the synopsis, my God, it's the original try. It is just like. The fact that I'm sure every version is like this. It was hard enough finding a version of the 31 version to view, but the fact that in the 10-year period they learned that, oh, you're supposed to have like backing music over scenes was such a big shift that I didn't really realize until I was shown it in stark contrast like it was. Because my God, just the constant sound of the hiss that comes with those older recordings with no music and just hearing these people kind of borderline mumble talk in certain cases with a really like put on transatlantic accents or trans-Pacific, I guess, since they're in San Francisco, whatever. And just, I felt like I was being like interrogated at a certain point. Then I jump into the 41 version and am shown like camera angles and music and backing and like different octaves and changes in emotion. I'm like, oh my God, it's beautiful.
Yeah, the 41 version it's a movie. Like it's a movie with a capital M, my friend. They like put a lot of effort.
There are so many times in this show where we've watched movies where it's hard to really call them what they are. It's like, man, like what is like whatever that one others, I forget the name of it. It's the one with Mark Wahlberg and the remake. Like the twist ends up being like all the money was invested in a stamp or whatever. What was that?
The Truth About Charlie, and the original was Charade with Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn.
Yes, like. The way we described the Truth About Charlie of it being like this pseudo wannabe French art house kind of style going on. And it's like, what is this? I don't know what this is. And then, yeah, like you said, watching the 1941 Maltese Falcon, that is a movie. That is as classic of a form of this is a piece of media that has been put to film reel and projected on a widescreen within a 1 hour and 30-minute time frame. It is a movie. It's like, holy shit. It's like, I forgot that these were a thing, honestly.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where watching it, I hair standing on end at specific scenes, and I don't get that a lot anymore. Or even when viewing like classic stuff, it's rare. It's like, it's funny because I think the main like a lot of classic movies have quotes associated with them, and the Maltese Falcons is definitely the stuff that dreams are made of. That's the takeaway from that movie. But good Lord, when Wilmer is on the couch after getting disarmed and he wakes up and everyone's staring at him and he comes to realize that he's going to be the fall guy in this situation, and Sydney Greenstreet just looks at him, he goes, "I love you like a son, but a man can get another son. There's only one Maltese Falcon." That had like hairs on the back of my neck. And that's a line that was in the first movie too, but the main character says it, and it's just like a matter of fact, like, I'm using this as a part of our negotiations. It's not like a classic quote caliber in that feature. Yeah.
Like, and if you did any kind of line like that in modern days, it would be panned for being so hokey of like doing a title drop like that. In this, it was brilliant. It was beautiful. It was poignant to like, it described the character of Gutman. It described the like desperate situation that Wilmer was in. It described just the whole sense of greed that's going through all these scumbags that, yeah, they're willing to give up supposed family for this chance at riches. It's insane. And we haven't actually seen when they did all the stealing of the Falcon. This is all after the fact stuff, and we learned so much about them regardless. It's like, how the fuck did we get here?
Oh my God. I watched, I know I talked about it on the show. I watched a movie last year called The Outfit, which was that tailor that like makes suits for the mob in this neighborhood. And I love the fact that we got a movie in the year 2022 that was so bottled, and it entirely took place in this small tailor shop that's basically 2.5 rooms. And I get such a good feeling when movies are able to restrain themselves, because you really know that they're trying to be about something, because all the focus is on the dialogue and the characters, and how they interact, like a 12 Angry Men, where they're all just arguing the details of this case over and over again. And in here, it's the same thing. It's like his office and then 2 rooms. They're apartment rooms, and that's it. And they're in the same room for the last 2/3 of the movie, pretty much, while they're sitting around waiting for this falcon to be delivered. They're arguing over money and who stole what and who's going where and who's taking the fall. It's so engaging, and no one has to do hardly anything. Sydney Greenstreet is sitting in a chair for most of this movie, and he is by far my favorite character, and I find him the most engaging because he's acting.
Yeah. And it's just, and this is in comparison to the prior movie that is near word for word and beat for beat the same, but just with like subtle shifts was able to make it engaging. Like the fact that we see Archer's death directly, the fact that we have all these moments of intermediate moments where he like has to go into a cab to track things down. It shows like actions happening without actually doing a lot of action. And just, oh my God. And just again, just the acting chops on display, which I feel bad for shitting on the 31 movie so much, but it is night and day, frankly. Oh my God.
I think everyone in the 41 version, everyone in their respective roles does a better job than the actors in the 31 roles. And there's good actors in the 31 version. I will say that I actually think Dudley Diggs as Casper Gutman in 31 is probably the best actor in that movie too, in my opinion. I think he's doing a really good job with that character based on the text, but he's up against Sydney Greenstreet. That's hard. It's very hard.
Yeah. Which, to be fair, Humphrey Bogart gives a run for his money with his character, which I can't tell if he is one of my lesser favorite characters in the film, just for the fact of, like, ultimately at times he can come off a little too brusque, which is, I guess, kind of the point, but it almost gets to the point of not liking him. I think he's incredibly clever, and I like that, obviously, but, you know, it's that same kind of stoic archetype thing from, like, noirs of the area that was just one of the main reasons I've never been a truly massive fan of them, just because at times I think it just gets a little grating. Like the fact that, you know, his partner dies and he has a pretty immediate reaction to like, okay, go ahead and change all our stationery and like change the name on the door and all this stuff. Which like I'm realizing now also though gets paid off in the end because we get to learn more about him, their relationship subtly. Like the fact that he originally, like that Spade actually had a thing for Archer's now widow wife. And now people believe like, oh, that's the reason he knocked off Archer so that he could get with his wife. And then you learn like, yeah, Archer's wife wasn't happy with him in general, but they had a lot of money together and all these other little subtle things. And then there at the very end, when he finally, you know, drops the truth that he knows it was O'Shaughnessy who killed Archer, he drops that of like, I don't care if I love you. I had a partner that you killed. It is my responsibility to bring you to justice for that. It's like, damn. All right. Like, that's truly like the bros before hoes moment before there was such a phrase for it. Which, you know, I need to gargle salt for saying that phrase out loud. But, you know, it's just, again, a matter of just subtle moments and being able to build up this character without necessarily needing to say it outright, which is where noir films shine. And I still can't tell you if I like this character. And I think that's the entire damn point. God damn it.
I mean, a lot of these gumshoes, these dicks from the era are meant to be unlikable. And that's why it's so hackneyed now, where it's like sitting, you know, self-narrating, sitting in a dark office with just blinds on the door, drinking whiskey with 5 o'clock shadow, because it's like, the world is awful, you know, it's such an archetype at this point. And I'll say that, unfortunately, I do think Humphrey Bogart is great, and I think he does a great job in general. It's just one of those things where he, at least for that era, he's like, you know, larger than life actor at this point. You know, you always see those hacky paintings of like Hollywood Mount Rushmore, and it's always Marilyn Monroe and James Dean and Elvis for some reason, and then it's always Humphrey Bogart. I think because of all those awful movies Elvis made with titles based off of his songs, like Jailhouse Rock, whatever.
Yeah, but those weren't good. Like, at least those other people are good.
Well, I think people got caught up in the Elvis hype and they didn't really care. That's why he got so many. He got a ton of movies and none of them are any good. But anyways,
like the toilet he died on has a better spot than him.
Humphrey Bogart sits in such an echelon that it's like he's just him. Whenever I see him in movies like this is a great movie and it's a great performance from him, of course. But I don't see Sam Spade. I see Humphrey Bogart playing a detective. And like, for example, like Peter Lorre, I love Peter Lorre, and I've seen him in a ton of things. But when I'm watching it, I'm not constantly thinking that's Peter Lorre. At most I'm thinking this is a really damn good performance from Peter Lorre. But when I'm seeing Humphrey Bogart, it's like, well, this is how I imagine Humphrey Bogart just lived day to day. So is he acting?
This is just,
and I know he
this
is.
is just a daily life.
Yeah, I know he is, but I can't separate that in my head, and that's not necessarily his fault. It's sort of the circumstances.
I feel bad for. I want to try to find some saving grace with the 31 version, but then I started thinking about the main actor for Spade in the original, and I was like, oh god, like that weirdly grinning douche.
Yeah, I mean, I don't.
I could not stay engaged whenever he was doing anything. I was like, God, this guy's rough.
I mean, that's one of the problems with the movie being such a direct adaptation. For only a decade later, is it. There's not a lot of iteration that was done upon it, so that we have like wild plot beats to compare against. Like, oh, well, I thought this plot beat was more interesting than the 41 one. I wish they kept it. It's just they took what 31 did, which was already based on a pre-existing book, and they just made it better. I don't think 31 is a bad movie necessarily. I just think it's kind of boring, which some would argue is worse. I don't necessarily argue that's worse, because I can look at a movie that I find relatively boring and still say, oh, that was shot pretty well. Or, like I was saying earlier, Dudley Diggs, I think, does a great job as Casper Gutman. He has this, he doesn't reach the same heights that Sydney Greenstreet does, but he's doing the same shtick, which I think is inferred from the character in the book. Like, okay, something I do like in the 31 version, even though it's super hokey, that it is not in the 41 version, is that in the scene where the money is being counted, the money that Gutman paid to Spade is being recounted by Gutman, and he's like, oh, there's money missing here. I think she must have took some. She took some money away from you. In the 31 version, he puts a monocle on to like count the money, and then he stands up and looks at Spade and says, well, there's $100 missing here, and the monocle just flies off of his face. And I'm like, that's funny.
Yeah, that's funny. That's something, at least. Yeah.
Yeah, there's doing something. There's something going on.
It's just like, I don't know what it was. Like, it seems like there was truly such a jump in quality in movies of that era in general between like the 30s and the 40s. I truly don't know what it was that happened necessarily. I'm sure like camera technology definitely skyrocketed. I'm sure that's part of it. Just because even just visually, like you can see more of the damn film. It's crazy to think about the amount that shifted inside one decade. Because it's just, I don't know, like, I think it is actually, it does go back to what you said before. It still feels like for a long time, I think we talked about this on the show before, for a long time, films were still just kind of portrayed as stage plays that are being filmed.
Oh, yes.
And so there's still like long lingering shots and very kind of moments of watching characters interact for extended periods, or just in very dry scenarios with for the most part, full foot to head, wide shots of everybody. And then you shift into the 40 version where people realized, hey, we can do like close-ups and dramatic beats, and we can show other environments, at least in part, to give more context and to be able to have all these different moments. Like even the part where they get to where he gets to the ship in the 41 version and seeing it on fire. He's only there at that scene for a couple minutes, and there's still just this very chaotic scene going on in the background. Did they have anything even close to that in the 31 version? I can't even remember.
I don't remember that.
It's just like it's just the fact that they're able to do more. At some point, someone came up with the idea of like, what if we weren't making a play? Like, that's just yeah, a brilliant idea. We actually realized that this is its own medium. This isn't just a way of advancing something that already exists. We can make it its own. And I think when they finally realized that, a lot of good shit started happening. And we're in the world we are today, which, one would argue they've lost their way a little bit, but that's neither here nor there right now. But yeah, I truly do think it was just a shift in mindset more than anything. And when it comes to just producing film, that, yeah, this is a medium all its own. It needs to be treated that way.
Yeah. I guess, I'm trying to think of like negatives for the 41 version, and I'm coming up short because I think it's,
We'll still say, like, this is obviously coming from the more modern perspective. I still think the general noir style of like, that kind of like the very grizzled gumshoe thing still gets kind of grating after a while. Again, I know that's a modern sensibility thing, but I'm sure even back then people were like, hey, this dude's a bit of a dick, and really everyone's being a dick to these women. And so that's just like on my part of just like, it means that I don't necessarily want to watch more of it as a result. And I know modern noir is also fall into that trope in its own ways, but they at least try to be like at least a bit more real about it. Like there's actually like a reason. Like we're not supposed to just like blow off the women. It's like no, we gotta actually recognize they're in pain, and just like the characters that get shit on in general. Like I think a good one that kind of deconstructs it a bit is in modern terms is Altered Carbon, which is a sci-fi noir.
Yeah, you mentioned this on. You've talked about watching it on the show before.
Yeah. The book is infinitely better, in my opinion, just because they change a lot of really weird, random things for the show. It's still decent, but you get a better impact from the book. But it does fun things like the whole plot of it's like people can swap what bodies their consciousness is in. And the thing that happens with the main character is he gets body swapped into a body that has a crippling nicotine addiction and is also previously alcoholic. And so he's literally the smoking and chain smoking and drinking detective because his body was pre-programmed that way. I think that's just really funny. It's like, oh, he's a trope because he got dealt a bad hand, literally. He got the model that was busted on the way in.
No, that's a good take.
And I like moments like that where they kind of take the time to deconstruct it a little and actually kind of poke fun at it. And I think just as a result, seeing the original version of that just means it's kind of rough for me, just because like it feels like more could have been done with this, because like compelling stories that were a bit more even-handed with those portrayals have existed. But that's just like that was generally like the production style of the time of like having how those characters acted and that sort of thing, which is ultimately excusable, but still, it just means it doesn't necessarily mean I enjoy it anymore while watching it.
Sure. Yeah, it's just, is that a fault of the movie itself, or is it the time period in which, and the culture in which the movie was crafted, since it was still iterating on what was novel at the time. But to that end, because I actually did think of something. It's not necessarily like a huge fault with the movie, but because you're talking about characters that get shit on, I think it's mainly a symptom of the character itself from the book. But Elijah Cook Jr. doesn't get a lot to do in the movie, which is unfortunate because I really like him. He's been in other things that I like the Vincent Price, with the House on Haunted Hill, and he was in Rosemary's Baby. Much later, he's been in a lot of stuff that I like, and I think that I think he's a good actor. It's weird to have him in this particular role just because he doesn't get to do a whole lot, But the same to that end applies to Dwight Fry. It's like this silent gunsel that works for Gutman that doesn't get a lot of words and then leaves at the end so that he's not incriminated by the party.
Yeah. Which, like, to be fair, he does enough with what he's got. He clearly shows he's a hothead and kind of has the young gun kind of thing going on, which itself is still kind of a novel concept. But yeah, it feels like there's a lot of moments of that where it feels like the secretary woman probably could have had more going on, but at the same time, didn't necessarily need another female ingenue, as it were, kind of in distress. They already had, the O'Shaughnessy character with Mary Astor. But, it's... Yeah, and like at this point, it feels like I nitpick certain things about it, but yeah, it's always that moment of it feels like they could have done more with the characters as they did, but they already did plenty with the characters they did do stuff with. So it's, I feel like at times I was a little kind of confused as to the O'Shaughnessy character's motivations, just because we didn't see a lot of her interactions with these other guys, which she clearly has some amount of history with, but we really only ever see her interact in like this, submissive role of like having always on the edge of being, beaten at her game and that sort of thing. So we never really see it. Like, it's clear that she's clever and that she's been pretty ruthless to get all this stuff, done to be able to try to get this Falcon straight up killing a man at point blank range and trying to get all these other people framed so that she can get away with the money. But ultimately, she's only ever portrayed, even up to the very end, as this kind of like waifish character who's having to deal with all these other people like throwing her into schemes. Which I would have hoped that there's been some sort of turnaround at the end, but like it's really just her just kind of crying and being like, how could you do this to me? It's like, what the fuck do you mean? How could he do this to you? You committed murder. Like, don't act like you're some innocent bystander in all this. You have actively admitted to being the perpetrator of this entire thing. Like, I don't know. It felt a little disjointed whenever it got right down to it.
You know what? You bringing that up, though, reminds me. It's funny. We've been talking about this movie for 35 minutes now, and yet the one thing that I think that the 31 film did actively wrong, or at least something that I didn't care for, is the one major difference between the two movies, and we haven't touched on it really at all, and that's the endings.
Yes.
I think which you alluded to earlier when you were discussing the synopses, but I think that the 41 version is more impactful, and that's the one I saw, that's the movie I saw first, as I said. So I'm watching it and I'm like, oh, that's really powerful. She's broken. Is he going to absolve her? No, he's not. He's sticking to his guns, and she did commit murder, as you said. So, take her away, and you just see her being taken down on this elevator as he sort of solemnly walks away. So I watched the 31 version. I think we're going to get to that point because I've just been watching a movie that the dialogue is, 1-to-1 on. And we get this whole scene in the prison where they're like joking with each other across the bars. And I'm like, well, this kind of took the wind out of the movie's sails, I think. Maybe I'm a little biased watching the better version first, but I was not expecting this.
Oh, what we've done another movie where there's a weirdly similar situation. It was one of your picks, I'm pretty sure, but I cannot for the life of me remember the name. It was about it was about like one of like the remake had Jack Nicholson as the main male role.
The Postman Always Rings Twice.
Yeah, Postman Always Rings Twice. It had a very similar thing going on where everything happens at the end, and in the original, the main character goes to prison for what he's done, and he's about to be executed or whatever it is. And like it has like he drops the line like the postman always rings twice, basically saying you can't escape consequences. And it's kind of like a weird kind of lingering trail for the end of the movie there, or just like it feels like it goes on a little bit too long. And then in the remake, it does the same thing that happened here. It ends at that final climactic moment. And it's like, oh, okay. It's just that it did it better here, where it actually like made it impactful, and we didn't have to actually state the moral of the story.
Right, we know what's happening. The implication is enough. Like they just spent 5 minutes about it, talking about it in the room.
Yeah. So it's weird that that's happened twice now. No, if we've had that scenario.
And they're both kind of noirs in a way. There's not like a detective.
Yeah.
Well, there is a detective running around Postman Always Rings Twice. It's just not one of the main characters. So
yeah, we're focused on the criminals rather than the detective.
Right.
Yeah, that's an interesting situation, huh? And I don't know why. Just like that doesn't really ultimately hold a whole lot of impact to what we were talking about, but it's weird that I ever thought about that.
Sure.
But yeah, it's the end. Yeah, the ending of the 41 version is about as stellar as of an ending as you can get. Like, even having seen the 31 prior, like the whole revelation of him dropping the truth bomb on her of like, yeah, I know you did it. Like, even in the time of having watched it a second time, I was like, oh shit. It's like all of this, everything comes together beautifully, like as a good noir mystery film should, and it was satisfying and tense, and again, still like the performance given from the O'Shaughnessy character, just like of still trying to kind of throw herself at his mercy. It's like I think that ship has sailed, darling. Like I don't like own up to it a little bit. Like you're a devious son of a bitch, and I don't know. Again, this is probably just a personal preference thing. I just think that the disjointed nature of her character was a little weird, but otherwise good ending.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. I think I tracked that.
It's just like I'm still trying to find those saving graces of the 31 version, but it's just this is truly one of the rarest cases we've had where the remake truly was with the intention of doing the story better, doing the story justice and correctly. I can't necessarily think of other instances where this has happened so directly. Like we've had ones where they've tried to do their own spin on it, like with Scarface, where it's the same story but it's a different context and everything, and with a vastly different ending, obviously. But it's just see it so almost 1-to-1 go from here is the rough draft, here is the final version, so much to the point that a lot of people don't even know the 31 exists. Is pretty. It's pretty insane, and like it's like I said, it's hard to find that moment of here's how the 31 was truly the pinnacle and shouldn't be undone by other people trying to recapture the magic. No, the magic was the 41 version. Like that was like we said at the beginning, and like we've kind of just been iterating with this. That was a capital M movie, and it is hard to top that. Like I won't say it's my favorite film of all time or anything by any stretch. Again, I'm still kind of mixed on the original noir series of things, but to say it was anything other than a movie would be vastly wrong. It kind of defines the genre in its own way. It does things that no other medium can, and it's pretty beautiful for that.
Yeah, I mean, I hear people talking about this, all the time. It's not like we found a diamond in the rough. Obviously, this is like a classic of cinema. I hear, it's mentioned in the same breath as things like Casablanca and The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. So, but still, like it was a great movie. I loved watching it. I'm super happy with it. I think the 41 Maltese Falcon Again, super popular movie, so I'm not breaking ground here, but I think it's up there in terms of things that we've covered on the show. I think my top 3 is like The Day of the Jackal, the anime version of Metropolis, and then this. Like,
Yeah.
I liked it that much.
Yeah, for me, I think, oh, goddamn, if I had to pick a top 3, I don't know. I don't think this one would be in my top 3, but it is up there. It's at least top 5. Or maybe like top 7.
Yeah, I mean, we've covered a lot of good things on the show, like in Infernal Affairs and Seven Samurai, like lots of great things along with
That's
the
true.
bad.
God, I did love Infernal Affairs. For as hokey as it was in its own way, I think that was a diamond in the rough. But yeah, this one's fucking up there. Like it's the kind of movie that reminds me like why movies are a thing as a whole, like why they stuck around, why it wasn't just some fad of like, oh, we're just filming stage plays and we're just, just continuing that and basically just stage plays that just stay the norm. No, this kind of like, I'm sure this wasn't like the defining film of like, oh, this is when it went from a fad to an entire art medium. It was already an art medium prior to that in its own ways, but this was really right on that period of, yeah, this is when we recognize it as the powerful medium that it is and what we can do with it and how we can show a story in different ways and how we can make it thrilling without also just kind of dragging it out. It's this movie makes me feel for movies what a lot of people seem to think Citizen Kane makes them feel for movies, which I've never gotten. I still think Citizen Kane is okay. I think there's a lot of cool technical aspects to it, but I think ultimately it's still pretty dull as dirt.
It is.
It's a very deep and gripping dull as dirt movie, but it is still dull as dirt. And so I think in my opinion, this one kind of tops that when it comes to just like saying what a film is. And it's, again, hard not to respect that, given that this has kind of been our whole thing.
Yeah, yes.
And just our way of trying to describe like what we feel about movies and how movies should feel in general. And I think this is about as much of a gold standard to go by as possible. Again, not my favorite film, far from the best film in the world, but it is a film. It's not a film, it's a movie. Like
Yes.
there is a difference.
No, that's very well put. And yes, I'm very happy with it. This was a great selection that finally got me to watch a classic.
Yeah. I was worried about it at first because I was watching the 31 version going, oh yeah, original noirs could be really dry and like make me want to fall asleep at all times. And then the 41 version really got going. I was like, oh, all right, we're in business. Oh man. But again, I almost feel bad because like, yeah, this has been it's not quite been a shooting fish in the barrel moment. This hasn't quite been Departed level, check your boxes. But it's kind of been the opposite situation of rather than shooting fish in a barrel, we are freeing fish from a barrel. I don't know what's the positive version of that, where it's like instead of just like taking all the time to blast the hell out of it, we're putting it up on a pedestal. It's hard to compare the two. Is me point.
It is, yeah, but
because it really just is rough draft versus final version.
right. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with having the bare bones, though you also have to wonder, because I haven't read the book, how much of that comes from the book versus comes from the 31 version. I don't know, honestly. I don't know.
I think no matter what, the 41 version is still just more interesting in general.
Yeah. No, definitely.
It's like, it's good to know the source material, but sometimes it's something just worthy of standing on its own. This one definitely is. Yeah, we have done so many schlock remakes and everything, and seeing one that's just truly just like, nah, fuck you. It's like, this is a movie, damn it. You're gonna enjoy yourself. And I was like, all right, fine, dang. It's weird how much like recently between the films I've been watching on my own, the films that have been kind of coming out more often, and just content in general that I've been deciding to consume, how much of it really just has stemmed back to, okay, let's stop going on about all this random bullshit that people are making money off of or beating a drum for some stupid reason. Here is the basic mechanics of what this X medium can do. We're going to have fun with that, and we're going to make a damn good product. Like between like the Menu and with the Dungeons & Dragons movie, and with Hi-Fi Rush, a game that came out, was literally shadow launched, like no prior announcement, just launched the same day it was really shown. And all of them doing that, of just going, here's a thing that is just good. And those are the best things I've been, it's been reinvigorating me lately. It's just like, where is all of this? Where has this been? Like, when did we decide, like, it's almost like the Marvelization of everything has kind of created this beautiful little umbrella for the real gems of the situation to kind of just poke out and go like, hey, while everyone's distracted over here, we're just going to do our own thing. and you guys can come join us if you want. And I'm like, sure, I'll join you. Fuck Avatar, fuck all this other stuff. I'm gonna go to the good shit.
Well, it helps that the superhero stuff is
Oh my god!
finally the masses have finally grown sick of it. People are still going to see it, but not in the same waves that they were. Quantum Mania tanked. It did money at the box office, but it left the top 5 fairly quickly. And Shazam 2, it was barely even up there, and it I'm pretty sure it had VOD too. So what a shame.
The beast can bleed. The beast can bleed. Now we just need to have that to happen with Star Wars, and for some reason Avatar. I still don't know a single human being who has actually seen the Avatar movie, and it still made more money than God. Like, what happened there?
I know a couple, and they all loved it.
I have not heard a single actual word about that movie. It is the wildest shit.
Oh.
But yeah, between that and Star Wars, like I'm seeing it start to wane. I'm like, yes, please, for the love of God, let us go back to just more original media. If not even original media, like I don't need original. I just need creative and decent and well made. That's all I need. Like give me Ray Fiennes doing fucking like killing more people in random like overly bougie situations.
I'd like that.
It's a weirdly specific take, I know, but still.
Oh, but we sorry.
I was just gonna say, which I guess I'm just describing the end of In Bruges with that, but whatever.
Oh. Well, we have we've waffled a bit unintentionally here at the end. Yeah. But we've made our points well known at the at this stage. It wasn't really even a chance. We tried. We were fair, I think.
Yeah.
But, that's the way it goes.
It's not always obvious if it's going to be this kind of situation, and I fully did not expect it to be this much of a situation going into this. But of like one is clearly the obvious choice between the two. It's rare form that it's the remake though.
Yeah, we only get it. I mean, there are instances like Willy Wonka and whatever where one of us will prefer the remake, but it's rare that it's like, oh, this isn't just an enjoyability thing. This is like actually better,
Like objectively, this is a better made thing. Like even if you want to sing merits of the original one, it's just not as good quality. It's like apples to like not quite apples to oranges. It's like an apple seed to an apple.
Agreed.
So it's a good film. Go watch it. Yeah. If you're curious about a lot of the origins of noir in general, go check it out. Go read Altered Carbon if you prefer the modernized version of it. The show, maybe watch it. I don't know. That's more your bag than mine. I never finished it because it got to a certain point. I was like, nah. I'm waffling a lot in this one, aren't I?
Apparently, yeah. So let's head into socials.
Yes.
Get those done. You can go ahead and follow us, subscribe, and leave reviews, comments, and likes on any of your favorite podcasting platforms. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spreaker, Podbay, Podomatic, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, YouTube, all of your favorites. But we are hosted on Spotify for podcasters?
Ooh.
Question mark?
Thank you, Spotify.
So yeah, we didn't make a switch. I just went to upload an edited episode for Planet of the Apes, I guess, and I clicked on my Anchor bookmark, and it took me to Spotify for podcasters, and best as I can tell, Anchor was absorbed by Spotify for podcasters, so technically, yeah, we're hosted by Spotify, I guess. I didn't switch intentionally, it just kind of happened.
Well, in one final case, thank you, Anchor, and now thank you, Spotify, I guess.
That's how it goes, that's how it happens.
Which they don't need my thanks to Spotify. They'll be fine.
Yes. Oh, but and go ahead and send us an email, theyremadeit@gmail.com, with any comments about the show, potential future episodes ideas. We do read those and take them into consideration. Anything you like about the show, hate about the show, let us know how Altered Carbon turned out if you ended up reading or watching it. We'll read all those.
We enjoy your comments.
Definitely. And go ahead.
We love some sweet, solid validation.
I love getting validation from anywhere that I can because I'm sorely lacking in my life. But speaking of getting validation from strangers, go ahead and follow us at They Remade on Twitter for updates about updates on when episodes are going live, potential future episodes, things that we've been playing and watching that we've covered on the show, and full circle diagrams I've been putting together regarding actors and actresses that we've covered more than once. And that is it for socials.
And just such a lore update to not have Anchor. I fully didn't expect that one.
Yeah.
After all this waffling, I was like, what? I was
sitting on it, but yeah.
Sometimes they are changing in the sense that they are hardly changing at all, but no, I do not watch the news anymore. I try not to.
I haven't watched the news in an eternity, but
Yeah. I think I briefly watched I've been going to the gym more often, and they just have like a bunch of TVs just with a bunch of different channels, which one reminds me that daytime TV is mostly a lot of like cop and crime dramas, which I forgot about that. But then two, what brief snippets I can get of whatever news they have on there, I just kind of look up, see some of the closed captioning on there, and I'm like, okay, I'm good for the next week. What was described there? I'm good. Boy.
I watched Judge Judy at the gym.
They actually do show Judge Judy at the gym.
Yeah. I do it. No, I'm telling the truth.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, because I go Mondays and Wednesdays right now after work, and she's always on.
Yeah, it's that. It's that on one screen. Whatever the modern equivalent of Jerry Springer is on the next, and then Criminal Minds. So they got the full range of the daytime round out there.
One of the TVs at my gym shows like Larry King on on infomercials, and I'm like, these are fucking old. He's been in the ground for a long time. Like, it's very strange. I have not investigated further.
I mean, I don't know how to top that one. That's the most unique one. Unique one yet. I think I'll round it out there if you're good with that.
Yeah, sure, definitely.
As always, I am your host Stuart.
And I'm your host Jacob.
Go enjoy some daytime television with your workout, folks. And go find this mythical Larry King channel. He'll live on in our hearts that way.
That can be your Maltese Falcon.
Jesus Christ. Good night, everybody.
You and your stupid attempt to buy it. Temidor found out how valuable it was. No wonder we had such an easy time stealing it. You imbecile, you bloated idiot, you stupid fathead, you...